Cool, that should be a nice camera angle to show my feet on the pedals. Right, let's see if we can start the car. What the? So, in an earlier video, you will have seen me topping up the clutch fluid. Oh, I hate filling things up from a full bottle. Oh, lots of bubbles, that's not a good sign. That probably should have been a telltale. So we have an interesting problem. I went to start the car this morning and the pedal has gone to the bulkhead and won't come back. Which is a bit strange. So, time to do some investigating, I think. So, I managed to get the pedal back off the bulkhead, but that tells me there's no fluid in the master cylinder, which is bad news. I'd literally only driven it one journey since we topped the fluid up, so what was about 150 miles or so, and I had no problems whatsoever. And there's plenty of clutch usage to get it onto the driveway, so it can't have been out of fluid when we arrived home, which would suggest it's leaking from somewhere. So, time to pop the bonnet, I think. Right, well, first thing to do is have a look around by the clutch assembly. So while this looks a little bit crusty, it all looks all right. It all looks to be sealing. You can see the clutch master is just here, which doesn't look great, but everything looks dry. So that doesn't look too bad as well. That's the flex hose that comes from the clutch master, and then it obviously disappears off down there behind the engine. So first things first, let's have a look. So that's got plenty of fluid in. So what the heck is going on? This is strange. So, what to do? So there's a couple of options. I guess maybe when it was low on fluid before, it's pulled a bit of a vacuum into the system, and now it's not got any fluid in the brake master here, so the system probably needs bleeding. But looking at the state of corrosion on that, while the brake master itself isn't actually leaking, I don't really like the look of that. It's only a matter of time before that starts to be a problem. So I think we'll maybe look at trying to replace the brake master, because actually up top here where the tube from the reservoir goes in, it looks a bit ropey. But where's all the fluid going is the question. Why was it empty before if it's not damp around here? My suspicions are that down the other side of the engine over there, where the brake slave lives, is probably where it's leaking. Now the annoying thing is, having no clutch means, as you can see, I'm not at the workshop. Getting underneath this is going to be interesting. Driving a car on the ramp with no clutch. This is going to be a problem. Joy! Love old cars. Love them. Right, well, we have had a delivery of parts for the Porsche. This is actually going to be the first of many. So we've got the clutch slave and clutch master for sorting out the pedal problem, and then we've got some seals and some clips and bits and pieces to replace the thermostat, so we can hopefully resolve the running cool issue. We also got a little seal for where the key goes in the boot to open it. It's all perished and looking pretty tatty, so as it was free shipment with a few other extra pieces, I thought I'd throw one of those in as well. We also have, but hasn't arrived yet, a set of brake discs, because there's a little bit of a brake wobble at high speed, and a set of drive shafts. Definitely think we're getting a bit of vibration from the CV joints. I believe they're original to the car, so I think they're pretty worn out. So as and when those arrive, we'll replace those as well. First job, get these done, see if we can get a clutch pedal back, and then we'll get onto these at some point as well. Right, let's get to it. So, first job, as with anything that's going to involve working under the car, we're going to disconnect the battery. So you can actually see I have rigged up here a little solar panel which helps trickle charge the battery. There is a small drain on the battery somewhere, but it's not actually quite meaty enough for the job, so I'm going to stick a charger on the battery once we've disconnected it. So let's crack on. So that is the battery disconnected. You can just see the earth lead down here, and the positive lead is disappeared down there. So they're nice and isolated from the battery. I would normally pull the battery to do a charge cycle like this, but as you can see, it's fairly wedged into this rear quarter of the car. So rather than pulling the whole thing apart for no reason, we'll just stick the charger in here. We're going to be out with the car most of the day working on it, so there's no reason why it can't sit here and charge. Right, now time to try and get this car in the air. So I didn't film this bit, so just assume that you know, lots of health and safety was followed, and the car is very safely up in the air before I get underneath it. Yeah, let's go with that. Okay, we are underneath the 944. All looks pretty tidy under here. The bit we're after is the clutch slave cylinder, which is just there. However, the first thing we've got to remove is the starter motor, which is why we disconnect the battery. So let's go on and remove the starter. So we are about 1 hour into the job, and so far I have removed one bolt. This is the bolt that sits back here on the starter motor. I then proceeded to try and remove this one. So as you can see, it's quite close up to the casting on the gearbox here, and quite close here to this little rib. Sorry, I say gearbox, I mean bell housing, because the gearbox is back there, transaxle. So I can get a socket on, but I can't get a ratchet or the impact gun into this side because it's quite close up to the sump here at the back of the engine, like really close. And because of where all these ribs are in a casting, I can basically get nothing in. Now the only spanners I've got are ratchet spanners, so they're quite thick around the end. In fact, I don't know if I've still got it here. Yes, I do. So that nowhere near close to fitting on that bolt, and you can just about get the open end in, but there's no way I can get enough torque on, and there's a little too much flex for my liking anyway. So despite having a whole tool set here at home and the impact gun and spanners and sockets galore, I can't shift it. So time to go shopping. So I really pushed the boat out on this £12 set of metric spanners. The thinking is these are plain ring spanners, so they're quite thin around this outer edge here, so it should fit on that bolt just fine. And I have got a 19 and a 17, which means I can put the 19 on, hook the 17 over, give myself a bit of extra leverage. And there's a bit of a win. With the trade card at Halfords, these come down to just over £9. And they have an offer on at the moment that if you buy an item on trade and you give them your email address for the receipt and the registration number of your vehicle, you get a £10 voucher. So these have cost me sort of negative 50p. Win-win. Right, well, we finally got the starter motor out. The second and final bolt didn't half put up a fight. Thanks to my friendly neighbour Chris for bringing round a heat gun and some brute force. And we eventually managed to get it off using a 19mm spanner with a 17mm spanner attached. Him pulling from the side of the car and me thwacking the 19mm with a hammer, and it eventually went. It was an unnecessarily tight bolt, which is odd because it doesn't look that bad on the threads, but yeah, very strange. Anywho's, we finally got that out of the way, and there is our slave cylinder. So that's the next thing to get off once I've had lunch and a cup of tea. Easy job, right? Right, well, we have removed the slave cylinder, which is here. I initially undid the ferrule up here for the hose that's coming to it to find lots of fluid coming out of it, which is interesting. I assumed this had drained completely of fluid, which is why we weren't getting an actuation on the pedal. So I was a bit concerned that maybe the issue was actually with the master cylinder. But on removing the bolts and pulling it back, you can see it bubbling there. Look at the state of that. That is our point of failure. So the seal has clearly failed on the shaft there, and it's just been oozing brake fluid, or clutch fluid, whatever you should call it, out of the system. So that's promising. At least we found the fault. So time to get this out and get a new one. And pause the video somehow. Right, well, that is the old part out and looking pretty dishevelled. Time to get a new one. Oh, it's all right, that. Happy days. Let's get it back in the car. Right, slave cylinder is in. That's all nipped up nice and tight. You'll notice I haven't put the cap on the end of the bleed nipple here because we do have to bleed this, but first we need to go back up to the top of the engine, somewhere way up there, that's less oily than that, and change the master cylinder, which is just up there somewhere. In fact, you can just see the little blue hose going into it. Well, that's all for this episode of Pop-Up Pin-Up. Join us next time as we crack on with the master cylinder and bleed the system. In the meantime, don't forget to like, share and subscribe, and you can check us out on Instagram and Twitter at Automotive Tales, and you can get more of an up-to-date on what we're doing day to day. Right, see you next time.